I got facts about these, man. Hey, man, I'm on your ass, man. You know what I'm talking about, man? Cause why, hold on, man.
You think you know Memphis rap? Think again. Because what's being whispered behind Pooh Shiesty behind those prison walls is nothing like the image you've been sold. The same voice that had the streets yelling back in blood is now caught in a situation nobody expected. But what really happened when those gates slammed shut?
Hey, man, you was in there standing there while you were eating. When they bumped down on you, they asked you, is you one of these five or is you a rapper? You said a rapper.
Picture this for a second. A chart-topping rapper, millions of fans, all that power gone the moment he steps inside federal prison. Rumors started flying that Shiesty wasn't running anything in there. Instead, people claim he was getting pressed, cornered, even forced to entertain just to move around safely. But how much of that is real and how much is straight up cap? Then it gets even darker. Word spread that he was being treated different, like rules were suddenly tighter for him than everybody else. Standing during meals, losing commissary, getting checked by inmates asking one brutal question.
You ain't stand up? You ain't sit down? When it was time to stand on business? So you let a nigga basically get you, man, made you stand up and eat your food.
Is you one of us or just a rapper? And according to some stories, his response shocked everybody. Did he really fold under pressure that fast? Or is someone twisting the narrative? But here's where everything flips upside down. Out of nowhere, a 32-year prison veteran jumps online, risking his name, his credibility, everything, just to defend Pooh Shiesty. Why would an OG with nothing to gain step in like that? And what he said, it didn't just clear things up, it made the whole story even more confusing. Now you got two sides, one painting Shiesty as a target, the other claiming he stood solid the whole time. So who's lying? And why does it feel like certain people want to see him fall instead of win?
I thought you supposed to sit down and eat. Man, he got the internet food, man. That nigga a hoe in jail, man. That nigga a buster, nigga. And I can get the penitentiary on the phone, nigga. For real.
This situation isn't simple. It's layered, messy, and way deeper than rap gossip. Before the charges, Pooh Shiesty was on top of the world. Hits, plaques, respect, the whole city behind him. But once 2021 hit and those federal charges came crashing down, everything changed overnight. The streets started watching closely, wondering if that same energy in his music would survive inside a prison cell. And that's when the stories started leaking. Stories that could ruin a rapper's name forever if they're true. But to really understand what happened, you gotta go back to the exact moment he first walked into that prison, because that's where everything started to shift.
Rapper Pooh Shiesty is facing prison time after pleading guilty to a gun charge in Miami federal court. The case against Lontrell Williams Jr. stems from 3 shootings during the past 2 years, 2 of them happening right here in South Florida.
So what actually happened on day 1 behind those walls, and who was already waiting for him? Everything changed the moment that sentence dropped. One day, Pooh Shiesty was running the charts with Back in Blood, and the next, he's walking straight into federal prison with the whole world watching. But here's the real question. Was he ready for what was waiting on the inside? Back in 2021, his name was everywhere. Hits blowing up, fans calling him the next king of Memphis. Then that Miami case caught up fast, and by January 2022, he took a plea deal, admitting to conspiracy tied to firearms and serious charges. The government wanted a full decade, but his team fought it down to 63 months. Still, let's be real, that's not a short stay, especially not in federal prison, because this isn't county jail, this is a whole different world. In there, your fame doesn't protect you, your music doesn't save you, and your image gets tested every single day. There are rules, politics, and lines you don't cross, and if you don't know how to move, things can go left real fast. So where did Shiesty fit in, and who was watching his every move? Inside, it's all divided. Groups, alliances, people from the same city sticking together, and when someone high profile walks in, everybody pays attention. They want to know one thing. Is he really like that, or is it all just music? And that's where the whispers started getting louder. Stories began leaking online, painting a picture that didn't match the tough image fans knew. People started claiming Shiesty wasn't moving like a street legend at all. But are these real accounts, or just rumors getting out of control? One Memphis voice in particular shook everything up. This guy jumped online claiming he had inside knowledge, and what he said had people stunned. He alleged that Shiesty was under pressure, being checked constantly, even made to stand while eating like he was being disciplined. But was this truth or someone chasing attention? Then came the question that changed everything. Is you one of the five, or is you a rapper? In other words, are you really living that life or just playing a role? And according to that same source, Shiesty allegedly answered rapper. If that's true, what does that say about everything he built his name on?
The claims didn't stop there either. There were talks of him being moved around, told what to do, and even having to perform just to stay on good terms. Imagine that, a chart-topping artist, now in a position where every move is watched, every decision judged. But who's really telling the truth here, and who's adding extras to the story? Because just when it looked like the narrative was set, someone unexpected stepped in and flipped the entire story upside down. So why did a 32-year prison veteran risk everything to defend Pooh Shiesty, and what did he reveal that nobody saw coming? Now imagine this, a rapper who once had millions screaming his lyrics, now rumored to be performing behind bars just to stay safe. Sounds unreal, right? But what if there's some truth mixed into all that noise? And what if the real story is even more complicated than people think? As time went on, the rumors didn't slow down, they got louder. Memphis blogs started picking it up, people in the streets kept talking, and Shiesty's name was getting dragged while he couldn't even respond properly from inside. One voice after another kept pushing the same claims, saying he was getting labeled as weak in a place where reputation is everything. But who benefits from putting that kind of label on him, and why keep pushing it so hard? Because for a rapper whose whole image is built on toughness, those kinds of accusations don't just hurt, they can end everything. People started questioning if the image was real or just music. But at the same time, there's a whole side of this story most people aren't even thinking about. Let's talk about money, because inside federal prison, money changes everything. While most inmates are scraping by with basic meals, someone like Pooh Shiesty walked in with real resources behind him. We're talking label support, fans, a steady flow of money hitting his books. So what does that actually look like behind those walls? It means access, commissary stacked up, better food, better options, even the ability to have other inmates cook meals for you. Shiesty even said himself after getting out that he was eating steaks in there. Not a figure of speech, real meals. So while people were painting one picture, was he actually living completely different from what they were saying? Because here's the twist, having money inside isn't just power, it's also a risk. The same thing that lets you live better can also put a target on your back. When people know you've got funds coming in non-stop, that can lead to pressure, to people testing you, to situations you can't just ignore. So was he really getting pressed, or was he just navigating a system where everybody wanted a piece? And that's where things get even more unclear, because now you've got two realities colliding. One side saying he was struggling, the other showing he had resources, food, and influence behind the scenes. So which one is real and which one is being exaggerated? Because just when the rumors hit their peak, that prison veteran stepped in and started breaking everything down piece by piece. So what did he actually reveal about how things really went down? And did he just expose the truth or uncover an even bigger lie? This is where everything gets real serious. The moment people started whispering about protective custody, the whole story took a different turn. Because in prison, that label isn't small, it sticks with you for life. But did Pooh Shiesty really end up in PC, or is that just another rumor getting out of control? On paper, protective custody sounds simple, separation for safety, but inside, it hits different. People hear PC and immediately start judging. So when talk started spreading that Shiesty was placed there at some point, the streets didn't ask questions, they started drawing conclusions. But who made that call, him or the system? Here's what most people don't think about. When a high-profile name walks into federal prison, the system moves different. They don't just throw someone famous into the mix and hope it works out. They assess risks, enemies, attention, everything. So if Shiesty was placed in protective custody, was it really weakness or just the prison trying to avoid a disaster? Because think about it, if something serious happened to a known rapper inside, that becomes national news instantly. So sometimes that move isn't optional, it's automatic. But the streets don't care about policies or safety measures. Once that label hits your name, people start talking, and they don't stop. And that's exactly what happened. Blogs ran with it, gossip pages amplified it, and suddenly PC got added to all the other claims. But here's the part that doesn't add up. Some people said he was in protective custody the whole time, while others claim they saw him in general population moving like normal. So how can both be true at the same time? And who's really telling the real story? Just when it looked like the internet had already made up his mind, everything flipped. Out of nowhere, a prison OG with over 30 years inside stepped in, and what he said hit different. Why would someone with that kind of reputation risk it all just to defend Pooh Shiesty? This wasn't just anybody talking. This was a man who's seen everything, earned respect the hard way, and doesn't speak lightly. And according to him, all those stories about Shiesty getting pressed, extorted, and embarrassed were straight false. He says Shiesty stayed low, handled his business, and didn't move reckless. So now the question is, who do you believe? Because Shiesty himself started giving hints after getting out. He talked about cooking real meals inside, actual steaks, not just basic prison food. That's not normal, unless you've got resources, connections, or people looking out for you. So was he really struggling like they said, or living better than most behind those walls? And it didn't stop there. While others were caught up in prison drama, Shiesty was focused, writing music, planning moves, thinking ahead. He even managed to call into a major podcast from inside. That kind of access doesn't come easy. So what does that say about his real situation? The OG made one thing clear. If someone is moving wrong in federal prison, word spreads fast. So if all that chaos was real, why didn't it line up with what respected people inside were saying? But just when things started leaning in Shiesty's favor, that same voice came back, doubling down, claiming everything was still true. So now you've got two completely different stories. One saying he stood solid, the other saying he got exposed. So what's the truth, and why does it feel like somebody is still hiding something?
The moment a celebrity walks into federal prison, their name gets there before they do. Guards know, inmates know, everybody's already watching. And that kind of attention is not always good. Some people want to be close to you, others want to test you, and some are just waiting to take advantage. So how do you survive when every move you make is being judged? Because that's the reality Shiesty stepped into. Fame doesn't protect you in there. It puts a target on you. Every conversation, every visit, every phone call, people notice it all. When you've got money on your books, outside connections, and people constantly reaching out, it can bring respect or jealousy. So was he respected, or was he being watched for the wrong reasons? Now think about this. While some inmates barely get visits, a known rapper might have lawyers, management, and family coming through regularly. That kind of attention can create tension fast. Add in phone access, staying connected to the outside world, and still working on music, that's a completely different prison experience. But does that mean he was comfortable or just moving carefully? Because here's what doesn't add up. On one side, you've got people claiming he was getting pressured, controlled, even embarrassed. On the other, a respected OG saying none of that happened, that Shiesty stayed solid and out the way. And here's the key detail. Nothing serious ever hit the news. No major incidents, no official reports. For someone that high profile, that silence speaks loud. So what's really going on here? Is this a case of rumors growing bigger than reality, or a story that was carefully kept out of the spotlight? At the end of it all, one thing is clear. Prison tests everybody, but the truth doesn't always come out clean. Sometimes it gets twisted, exaggerated, or buried depending on who's telling it. So when you hear these stories, are you listening to facts, opinions, or something in between? Now here's where the story really gets exposed. One side kept saying, I've been everywhere, I did multiple bids, I know what I'm talking about. But ask yourself this, why push so hard to prove your credibility unless you're trying to tear someone else down? Meanwhile, the OG defending Shiesty, he had nothing to gain at all. So who sounds more believable? Because think about it, a man doing life isn't chasing clout or internet attention. When someone like that speaks up, it usually means something didn't sit right with him. And if he's saying those rumors were false, why were they spreading so fast in the first place? Now look at what happened when Shiesty came home. No hesitation, no fear. He jumped right back into the spotlight, dropping music, going live, connecting with fans like nothing ever broke him. So if prison really crushed him like people claimed, how did he bounce back that quick? And here's something people overlook. He didn't come out trying to prove how tough he was. No long interviews, no wild prison stories, no trying to convince the world he's solid. He stayed quiet about most of it. And honestly, doesn't that say more than talking ever could? Because this isn't just about one rapper. This is a pattern. Every time someone young, successful, and winning gets locked up, the rumors start flying. Stories get created, reputations get tested, and the truth gets buried under opinions. So was this really about what happened in prison, or about people trying to rewrite his story? At the end of it all, you're left with two versions. One loud, messy, and everywhere. The other quiet, backed by actions, not words. So which one are you believing, and why?
Let's clear something up right now. This whole idea that he was forced to freestyle for protection, that don't even add up. If someone's really trying to press you a rapper in prison, they're not asking for performances, they're asking for money or connections. So why did that story spread so fast? What actually makes more sense is this. He stayed low, handled his time, and focused on music. That's exactly what the OG was saying the whole time. And when you look at the facts, it lines up. Multiple people vouched for him, while the loudest accusations came from voices that seemed personal. So was this ever about truth or just tearing him down? Now look at the results. He didn't serve the full 10. They pushed for that, but he got out in about 3. That kind of outcome doesn't happen if you're constantly causing problems inside. Good behavior matters, and that tells his own story. But just when it seemed like everything was finally settling, things took another turn. After getting out in 2025, he barely had time to adjust before landing in a halfway house situation with strict rules. Then suddenly, another arrest. And not long after that, federal agents show up at a family home. So now the story gets even bigger. Is this just bad decisions catching up, or is there something deeper going on behind the scenes? At the end of it all, one thing stands out. Truth gets messy when fame, streets, and the system all collide. So when you hear these stories, are you watching a downfall unfold or a setup nobody fully understands? This is where everything comes together and the pressure gets real. Federal supervised release isn't freedom like people think. It's rules on top of rules. Where you go, who you talk to, what you post, everything gets watched. So how does a 25-year-old rapper step back into fame while walking that tightrope every single day? Because one mistake and it's right back to a cell. That's the reality he's facing now. But here's what stands out. He didn't come out broken. He came out creating, connecting, moving like he still has something to prove. So what does that say about how he really handled those years inside? Remember what that OG said? The real ones survive and the fake ones don't. And no matter what rumors were floating around, one fact stays solid. He made it through, kept his mind right, and didn't lose his career. But surviving prison and surviving the real world, those are two completely different battles. Because the truth is, these kinds of rumors hit almost every rapper who gets locked up. Stories spread, names get tested, and the internet runs wild. But the real test isn't what happened inside, it's what you do when you get out. And so far, he's been moving forward, not backwards. Look at the facts. He had money, so he lived better than most. He stayed smart, stayed focused, and got out earlier than expected. He had someone with nothing to gain vouch for him, while the loudest critics had everything to gain from tearing him down. So which side really holds weight? Now here's the bigger question. Is this the start of a comeback story or the beginning of another setback? Because in the end, this isn't just about prison rumors, it's about choices, pressure, and what happens when the spotlight never turns off. So when you look at everything, the rumors, the facts, the comeback, what do you really believe happened? And what do you think comes next?